There are three images of man fashioned by our modern time, which for a long while yet will urge mortal men to transfigure their own lives. One of Nietzsche's earliest writings are his so-called Untimely Meditations, a collection of essays that lack his later aphoristic and polemic style of writing. One of these essays, entitled Schopenhauer as Educator, is of considerable interest. We will go over the essay in its entirety in another video. Please subscribe if you want to be notified when it comes out. The purpose of this video is to highlight an interesting typology Nietzsche proposes about half-a-true. Nietzsche distinguishes three types of men in the modern world. You could say they are archetypes of sorts. Men who set an example that is worthy of being followed. Or are they stages individual men must go through? Nietzsche is not particularly clear on this point. Still, let's take a closer look. The Man of Rousseau is the first type. This type has the greatest fire and is most calculated to impress the people. The Man of Rousseau is a revolutionary, yet it is also a deeply troubled soul who feels estranged from the modern world. Oppressed and half crushed to death by the pride of caste and the pitilessness of wealth, spoiled by priests and bad education, a laughingstock even to himself, man cries in his need on holy Mother Nature and feels suddenly that she is as far from him as any god of the Epicureans. His prayers do not reach her, so deeply sunk is he in the chaos of the unnatural. He lashes out in anger against culture, throws away all his arts and sciences, all the refinements of his life, and expresses a desire to return to nature. And crying out, "Nature alone is good, the natural man alone is human," he despises himself and aspires beyond himself, a state wherein the soul is ready for a fearful resolve, but calls the noble and the rare as well from their utter depths. The Man of Rousseau is angry, passionate, and dangerous. Goethe's Faust was the highest and boldest picture of Rousseau's man, so far at any rate as his hunger for life, his discontent and yearning, his intercourse with the demons of the heart could be represented. But what comes from these congregated storm clouds? Not a single lightning flash, and here begins the new image of man, the man according to Goethe. Goethe's man is not angry nor dangerous. Goethe's man represents a renewed appreciation of culture and history. Goethe's man is not a revolutionary. Goethe's man here parts company with Rousseau's, for he hates all violence, all sudden transition, that is, all action, and the universal deliverer becomes merely the universal traveler. All the riches of life and nature, all antiquity, arts, mythologies, and sciences pass before his eager eyes. His deepest desires are aroused and satisfied. Goethe's man is the contemplative man in the grand style, who is only kept from dying of ennui by feeding on all the great and memorable things that have ever existed, and by living from desire to desire. Where the Man of Rousseau seeks to change the world through revolutionary action, Goethe's man appreciates the world as it is, including its history. Yet he remains troubled. You could say he appreciates art and culture only to distract himself from his own troubles. His life is culturally minded, full of pleasure, yet it's an existence going from desire to desire, fundamentally empty. He lacks passion and brute force. The Man of Rousseau is passionate but lacks refinement and sophistication. Goethe's man is refined, cultured, and sophisticated, but lacks passion. Goethe's man needs to become angry. The picture of Schopenhauer's man can help us here. Schopenhauer's man voluntarily takes upon himself the pain of telling the truth. This pain serves to quench his individual will and make him ready for the complete transformation of his being, which is the inner meaning of life to realize. We have to remember that, at this point in time, Nietzsche was a fanatical devotee of Schopenhauer. His vitriolic attacks on Schopenhauer's philosophy came much later in his intellectual development. We can see how in love he is with Schopenhauer at this time, as he views the Schopenhauerian man as the highest ideal. The Schopenhauerian man tells the truth, even if others around him do not like it. The Schopenhauerian man speaks to the universal, which greatly irritates common men who are only concerned with the particular. He who would live according to Schopenhauer would seem to be more like a Mephistopheles than a Faust. That is, to our weak and modern eyes, which always discover signs of malice in any negation. But there is a kind of denial and destruction that is the effect of that strong aspiration after holiness and deliverance, which Schopenhauer was the first philosopher to teach our profane and worldly generation. Nietzsche praises the ideal of the Schopenhauerian man, which is the same creature as the ascetic in Schopenhauer's philosophy, the sage, the monk, the saint. The sincere man feels that his activity has a metaphysical meaning. It can only be explained by the laws of a different and higher life. It is, in the deepest sense, an affirmation, even if everything he does seems utterly opposed to the laws of our present life. The ascetic lifestyle, the highest ideal of man, comes at an enormous cost. His courage will destroy his happiness on earth. He must be an enemy to the men he loves and the institutions in which he grew up. He must spare neither person nor thing, however it may hurt him. He will be misunderstood and thought an ally of forces that he abhors. In his search for righteousness, he will seem unrighteous by human standards. But he must comfort himself with the words that his teacher Schopenhauer once used. A happy life is impossible. The highest thing that man can aspire to is a heroic life, such as a man lives, who is always fighting against unequal odds for the good of others, and wins in the end without any thanks. The Schopenhauerian man lives a life of truth and sincerity, but it comes at a great cost. The great reward, however, is that the ascetic penetrates deeper than anyone else into the true nature of reality. Certainly, the Schopenhauerian man stands high above the common folk. He is troubled and sees that no one is troubled in the same way, but rather that the hands of his fellow men are passionately stretched out towards the fantastic drama of the political theatre, or they themselves are treading the boards under many disguises, youths, men and greybeards, fathers, citizens, priests, merchants and officials, busy with the comedy they are all playing, and never thinking of their own selves. The Schopenhauerian man is a true philosopher in that he is not concerned with worldly affairs. The Man of Rousseau seeks to change the world. Goethe's man tries to appreciate the world in order to forget his own suffering, and the Schopenhauerian man embraces the suffering and turns away from the world. Eventually, the Schopenhauerian man will achieve some sort of enlightenment. At some point, the earth loses her dragging weight, the events and powers of earth become as a dream, and gradual clearness widens around him like a summer evening. It is as though the beholder of these things began to wake, and it had only been the clouds of a passing dream that had been weaving around him. They will at some time disappear, and then it will be day. It's a strange experience to read these words Nietzsche wrote. He was only 30 years old at this point, and in his subsequent intellectual development, he will turn against his old master Schopenhauer. His intense devotion will turn into intense hatred. It's a change of mind that is perhaps unparalleled in history. Here we have a young Nietzsche completely smitten with the works of Schopenhauer, completely convinced of their truthfulness. The young Nietzsche who praises the aesthetic, the renunciator of life, of love, and of the world. Nietzsche who is urging his readers to say no to life, to say no to the world, to turn inward, and to negate the will. And yet, in just a short few years, that very same Nietzsche will write, Amor fati, let that be my love henceforth. I do not want to wage war against what is ugly. I do not want to accuse. I do not even want to accuse those who accuse. Looking away shall be my only negation. And all in all and on the whole, someday I wish to be only a yes-sayer. Gradually, Nietzsche will develop a fourth image of man, the ultimate image of man, a new heroic ideal to which man can aspire. That image, of course, is the Übermensch. Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video. If you want more Nietzsche, we have two of our flagship series to recommend. Our treatment of Nietzsche's Beyond Good and Evil and our analysis of On the Genealogy of Morals. And please, like and subscribe if you found this video helpful. That way the YouTube algorithm is more likely to promote it to other viewers. It really helps out the channel. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.